Hello and welcome everyone to the webinar presentation today titled NCLEX Success, Your International Nursing Journey Starts Here. My name is Ron Hoppe. I am the CEO of Worldwide Health Staff Solutions, and I couldn't be more pleased to be joined today by a great friend and colleague, Dr. Rosemarie Pica, who's the Managing Director of Rachell Allen Review. And Dr. Pica, it's great to be with you today.
Hi, Ron. It's also a pleasure and an honor to be with you tonight and to share, of course, all the things that are, a lot of nurses would like to know, right?
Sure. Well, as we prepare to jump into our topic for today, just a couple of things that I would like to mention quickly to our guests. First of all, we always like to have some insight into who's joining us. So if you would just take a moment and just drop a note in the chat section of your screen, letting us know what country you're joining us from today. We greatly appreciate that. So if you would take just a second to do that, that would be hugely appreciated. Secondly, we welcome your questions. And again, please jot down your questions and send them to us using the chat section on your screen. We have a colleague who's moderating the presentation today, and she is monitoring all the questions that are coming in. And Dr. Pica and myself will do our best to answer those questions at the conclusion of the presentation today. And then lastly, I would just like to bring to your attention that this presentation today is being recorded. And a copy of the presentation will be available within the next 24 hours online at the Worldwide Health Staff Solutions YouTube channel. And it'll also be available through the Rachell Allen platforms. So please note that if you have friends or colleagues that you believe may be interested in this content, please feel free to share this link with them sometime after the next 24 hours. So with that being said, Ali, if we could move forward 2 slides, please. Great. So the topic of our webinar today is NCLEX success and why it is required. So we're going to start right there, Dr. Pica. The NCLEX exam, I think, is familiar to everyone, but let's just take a few minutes and recap why it is absolutely essential for anyone looking to live and work as a nurse in the United States.
Well, first of all, let's start with the obvious, right? NCLEX is a test that will help the nurses obtain that nursing license to practice in the US. So, meaning NCLEX is your gateway to the US healthcare system because the license is the first requirement for you to be able to practice as an RN in the US. And of course, employers will only prioritize those who have their NCLEX. Why? That means you are licensed to practice in the US. And of course, NCLEX is required for visa filing, like one in their employment. So can you be more specific why they need that?
Sure, happy to do that. These are exactly the reasons why NCLEX is essential. I'll just speak for a moment to why employers prioritize NCLEX. Employers obviously have a different priority than just focusing on the immigration requirements. I think one thing that's important to realize is while there's a shortage in the United States, the number of international nurses around the world that are taking and passing the NCLEX exam has never been higher in the last 2 or 3 years. Very significant increase post-pandemic in the number of NCLEX passers. So as an internationally educated nurse, NCLEX really has become what we call table stakes. You just have to have it because there's many other nurses from the Philippines and from countries around the world that are interested in the same opportunities that you're interested in. And if they have passed NCLEX and you have not, you are at a clear disadvantage in terms of gaining the attention of that employer. So I think that's one important point. Secondly, as Dr. Pica mentioned, it's required for visa filing. You can be a nurse that has the best clinical skills. You might have 5 years of experience, 10 years of experience. All of that is not going to get you to the United States without an NCLEX passing score in the exam, because it is required to even begin a visa application. So until you've passed NCLEX, you have, you may have a job offer, you may have 10 job offers, right? And they look great and you feel good, but you're not going anywhere. So it's important in an increasingly competitive applicant environment, and it's absolutely essential to get your visa application started. Next slide, please. So now that we have a basic understanding of why the NCLEX exam is so important and it's essential, Dr. Pica, take a few moments and talk to our guests about common NCLEX pitfalls and what holds applicants back from passing the exam.
Well, thank you, Ron. After handling students for the past 20 years, teaching them how to pass the NCLEX, one of the common pitfalls is, of course, the lack of strategy and plan. I've had a lot of students who came to our program and they said, "Ma'am, I realize now why I failed the NCLEX because I did it on my own. I just read the books and I just attacked the NCLEX thinking it was easy to pass." Well, especially the new NCLEX nowadays, did you know, Ron? It's requiring or it's testing the candidate's decision making capacity. Meaning, because RNs are expected to be making decisions on the area, they are now testing the decision making skills of the RN. So that's why they need to go through a good preparation course so that they will be prepared on what questions on or how to attack the questions. So number two is test anxiety and overthinking. Oh my God. So this is so very common, especially, when students are about to take their NCLEX. Their anxieties go up, all right? They have the tendency to overthink. You know, in truth and in fact, when, it's not only about the test, and I tell the nurses that, for example, if you are a nurse, you have to, have the habit of training yourself to be calm. You know why, Ron? It's most important that when they are in the area, all right, something happened to the patient showed, sudden change in their condition. The nurse should be calm so that she can think well. You know what happens when you're anxious or when your anxiety goes up? Your ability to think properly, it is blocked. And that's why you cannot make the right decision, and you cannot think clearly, you cannot understand the usual, words that you usually understand. You cannot make a decision. Now, and you know what overthinking is? They have a tendency, for example, the question is only asking about a patient with an altered LOC, or meaning dizzy or drowsy. Some nurses already are assuming that that patient is having a seizure or whatever, comatose. So that is what we call overthinking. And another one is too many scattered resources. Now, here's the thing. We had a student who only went through the Rachel Allen course, meaning she went through the live class, she did the Rachel Allen Q Bank, so her line of thinking is very clear. Ron, the saying that too many cooks spoil the broth. Have you
Yes. Yeah.
heard that saying? You
Yeah.
know what happens when students try to access so many review courses? They get confused. Why?
Mhm.
We have different ways of attacking a concept. So, one of our students, she accessed so many available resources. But when she was about to take her exam, she encountered questions that it was hard for her to make a decision because one review center said this, one review center said that, Dr. Pica said this. She doesn't know what to do anymore. So they understand if you have too many resources, scattered resources, it would actually make you confused when it is the
Right.
time now to make a decision.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
lastly, delaying the exam unnecessarily. Now, I have a friend who actually, um, he's a philanthropist. On his personal basis, he helps nurses, to enroll in our classes. But one thing that, irritates him is that when the nurse underwent our review and did not take the exam right away, so it would make him mad. Why? Because he said the fresher the information, the easier it is for you to use it, right? And don't think that because you are delaying, that you will remember it all. No, our brain has a limited capacity to remember this information. If you delay something, you tend to forget about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
think these are all really excellent points, and it really resonated with me when you were talking about too many scattered resources, right? At this time with the internet and so on and so forth, social media, the access to information and resources is really endless if you put your mind to it, right? But really, all you're doing is complicating the task at hand, probably wasting a lot of time as well, while at the same time, contributing to a rising level of anxiety. So
exactly.
all really excellent points. And the analogy of, too many cooks spoiling the broth is I think very, very appropriate here. So given that these are common NCLEX pitfalls, if we can go to the next slide, please. Dr. Pica, take some moments and then speak to our guests about NCLEX preparation tips.
Okay, Ron, I would gladly do that because one of the things that I teach our students here, all right, is not just to know the concepts first, and you can do that without memorizing. Did you know that? One of the things that I tell them is to read it, all right, and while we're teaching, to say it too. Because learning is not just about reading or listening, you have to also say it, you know? And there was a study that was done that says the more you say it, the more it gets imprinted in your head. And when you say focus on critical thinking, that means how do you use the information that we are teaching you? Because that's the way that new generation NCLEX is trying to test the nurses with, right? Their decision making capacity. How do you use the information that you know to, and did you know what's the number one responsibility of the nurse? To protect the patient. How will you use
Mhm.
all that information to protect your patient, right? And of course, it will help a lot if you use practice tests and simulation exams, and we have all of that, right? We give them NGN type of questions, we give them very hard questions in order for them to use their critical thinking. Now, also, we help them to have a structured review plan. So, everybody who went through our programs, we help them how to organize their, every nurse has an individual strength or weakness. For example, one nurse could be good with obstetrics nursing or maternal nursing. Another nurse may be good at pediatric. Another nurse may be good at cardio. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and we help them arrange those strengths and weaknesses to benefit them and what to focus on. And again, don't wait too long to take the NCLEX, because when you start with the review, that means you have a plan to take the NCLEX right away, and
Mhm.
that's why we're here. We will prepare them for the NCLEX.
Yeah. Dr. Peak, it's interesting to me. You've mentioned now a couple of times this idea of procrastination or waiting too long, right? And I think it's a great point. In your experience, why do some applicants have this behavior of just getting to the finish line, so to speak, in their review, but then not getting across the finish line in terms of taking the exam? Just interested in your further thoughts there, please.
Well, Ron, that's interesting because based on our experience, I have encountered a lot of students who did that. And what they didn't know. Now, first of all, one of the reasons why they delay it is the fear of failure, right? And did you know that's one of my favorite, topics when I give talks to my class? And it is something that was, I think, said by Kobe Bryant. You know what Kobe Bryant said? The
Oh.
fear of failure. If you're afraid of failure, that's most likely going to make you fail. Because when you are afraid to try, first of all, that means you do not trust yourself. And what do I tell our students? Now, if you want to succeed in life, if you want to succeed as an RN, first of all, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you can do it, right? And one of the reasons also why they think they will gain more knowledge, they will gain more confidence. And it is true what you said earlier, Ron. You said that what they didn't know is that when the more they delay, the more they increase their anxiety,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so that's why they fail.
yeah,
Instead of, passing right away, the more that they fail. It's both a
yeah,
combination of the fear and the increasing anxiety.
yeah, yeah. Very, very good points. I think it's a great advice to candidates, and maybe we can expand on this thought even a little further as we go along. So we've talked about some of the pitfalls that candidates may encounter along the path of taking the NCLEX exam. We've talked about some great tips on how to best prepare. And now, if we can go to the next slide, Dr. Pica, just give an overview to our guests of what the approximate timeline is for someone who's wanting to get started in the process of preparing for and taking the NCLEX exam.
Well, Ron, we get a lot of inquiries like, when do I review? When do I start? When can I enroll? The first thing that my staff will ask the inquiries is that have you already applied to any board of nursing? Because
Yeah.
they did realize that the application process takes so long, right? And because of the amount of applicants from different countries, and that is the reason for the delay. So from the moment, okay, you decide that you're going to take the NCLEX, you want to work in the US, you have to first start with your application, right? So first, you have to choose which board of nursing you want to apply to, and it's not that easy. Unlike in the Philippines, for example, you just apply to one board of nursing. But in the US, it depends on each state what they require. So you have to do that due diligence or find, somebody who can help you with the application process. So NCLEX application usually takes 4 to 6 months, sometimes up to 12 months. And that depends on which board of nursing you applied to or what credentials that you already have. Because some board of nursing are requiring like an English test or a certain amount of experience, but there are still board of nursing that do not require any of those, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
depends on which board of nursing. But here's the thing, one of the things that people don't know is that you can apply, for example, in New York. We usually direct our clients to New York. Why? Because it's easier and it's faster, not too many requirements. But if you apply through the Board of Nursing of New York and you pass the NCLEX, then your employer or you yourself can endorse it to another state, right?
Yep.
So, having said that, so from the start, application first. And did you know sometimes it's hard to get a nowadays transcript of record? So you have to prepare it ahead of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the NCLEX review, all right, we have different types of combination. We have the 25 days, we have the 21-day online, all right, for those of you who are out of the country and who are working. And we also have the final coaching, the 15-day final coaching, which is very much intensive. So we also have a combination of both. So probably you can give a maximum of 2 to 3 months for the review because it depends also on which program you are going to go through. So around 2 to 3 months. So we have, um, more or less a year to prepare for your actual NCLEX,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important for our guests that are just thinking about getting started on this journey that it does take time, right? And
Yes, yes.
you can't just apply for the NCLEX exam today and think you're going to write the exam next week.
Next week.
Um, it is really I think probably on average from start to finish, it's the better part of a year, right? To complete all of these steps. So important to have that timeline in mind. Good, great information. So if we can go to the next slide. I want to talk for a minute about the visa bulletin. This may seem a little bit out of step with the topic today, but I do believe there is a connection and a relevance because we get many inquiries from nurses around the world that say, what would be the best time for me to start on my immigration journey to the US? Should I start now or should I wait until the visa processing time becomes shorter? What's the best strategy for me?
Now, Ron,
And yeah,
before you discuss that, I would like to, let you know that I get this question a lot. You know,
yeah,
um, a lot of nurses are very much concerned. Some of them are already preparing for their NCLEX. A lot of them are just planning to take the NCLEX. They don't know what to do.
yeah,
Why? Because of the word retrogression,
yeah,
right? So there's a question that I got from a couple of students. Will retrogression kill my American dream?
yeah,
Won't it take forever to get there? So, Ron, can you please explain more about that
yeah,
retrogression?
yeah. Happy to, happy to. So, retrogression and the visa bulletin are two things that are strongly interrelated. So, let me take just half a step back and just ensure that we have a common understanding of what retrogression is. Okay, so every year, the United States has available 145,000 employment-based visas, or permanent residency visas, rather. And each year, they're authorized to issue that number of visas. At the same time, in many years, particularly recently, there are more applications received than 145,000. So there's more visa applications in the system than there are visas available. And when this condition occurs, that is referred to as visa retrogression.
Mhm.
It simply means there's a backlog. On the one hand, there's a limit on the number of visas that can be issued. On the other hand, there is no limit on the number of visa applications that can be submitted. So when there are more applications in process than there are visas available, we have this condition called retrogression. It's simply a line backing up. So we have this condition of retrogression, which is summarized. The status of visa processing is summarized on a monthly basis, available for anybody to see online by the U.S. State Department. It's a document called the Visa Bulletin. The Visa Bulletin. And without getting too deeply into the weeds on this in our discussion today, currently today, the U.S. Immigration system is issuing visas to applicants whose petitions were received on April 1st, 2023 or earlier, right? So if we take a look, April 2023, today we're in September of 2025. So that would mean that a petition filed today, if these processing times remain steady, would receive their visa in about 29 or 30 months from now. That's what the visa bulletin is telling us. But I think the point, Dr. Pica, that the applicants are really wanting to get to, I think, as you said, is my American dream dead? And the answer is emphatically as I can say it, is absolutely not. And the reason I say this so strongly is because this immigration program, this permanent residency EB3 program for nurses, has been in existence for more than 30 years. And over those 30 years, there's really been few changes to the program, which is kind of a good news, bad news scenario. But the fact is, the program is very well established, very stable, very predictable. And I can say to our guests today that if you have a properly prepared and filed petition with a bona fide employer, the question is not, will you arrive in the United States? The question is when. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So when we think about processing times, it's also important to know that processing times change, right? If we were having this conversation 2 years ago, just right after the pandemic, processing times were closer to 12 months, right? Today, they're closer to 30 months. Historically, over the last 2 or 3 years, they've been somewhere 18 to 24 months. Even if the processing times are, let's say for discussion, 24 months today, that doesn't mean that it's going to take 24 months for your petition. If the processing times advance, it could be shorter. If the processing times become stretched out, it could be somewhat longer. So the answer, Dr. Pica, to the question, is my dream dead, is emphatically no. And then the next question that usually comes after that is, okay, then, so what can I do to get to the US in the shortest possible time? Right? That's the next question. And the answer to that question has a couple parts. The first part we've already talked about today at some length. Take and pass the NCLEX exam. Until you pass the NCLEX exam, the processing time for you is infinite. You're never going to arrive, right? You're never going to arrive. So passing the NCLEX exam is critical. I use the analogy, it's kind of a bit silly, but it makes the point, right? When you think about your journey to the US, think about buying a new car, right? And if you were to buy a new car, you buy a new Mercedes, okay? And the Mercedes represents the job offer letter. So you have great experience, you interview with a great employer in a great location, you get a job offer letter, right? You've essentially just gotten your Mercedes. The problem is there's one thing missing, right? The engine. You've got this beautiful looking car, but it doesn't have an engine. You're not going anywhere. The NCLEX exam is the engine. It's the engine that allows you to move forward. So is my American dream dead? Absolutely not. What's the fastest way for me to get to the US? Step 1, take NCLEX. Step 2 is to work with a bona fide recruitment agency and get a petition started for yourself at the earliest possible time. Visa applications are processed essentially on a first in, first out basis. So again, saying, well, I'm going to wait a year to file my petition and hopefully the processing times will be shorter, is absolutely ill-conceived and is only going to serve to delay your ultimate arrival. Pass NCLEX, get a petition filed for you, get in line, get a priority date. The processing times are going to be shorter, they're going to be longer, but until you're in the line, you're never going to arrive. So a bit of a long answer to a short question, but I think it's a really, really important point to have the right perspective on, what this journey could look like. And we've got just a couple of points here. I'll just, speak to them super briefly so we can move on, right? So when we talked about what is retrogression, right? And think about retrogression as simply being a delay in the process. It's not that the process is ended or that you're denied. You're not. This is a particularly good illustration for our candidates and guests in the Philippines, particularly in Manila. Think about retrogression like traffic, right? You're stuck in traffic, but you're not stuck in a dead end, right? It's just moving less quickly than you hope it would. So when you think about processing times, think about the last time you were stuck in traffic, which was probably today, right? Hospitals are still hiring and lining up candidates, right? The nursing shortage in the United States is real. It continues to be a significant and growing issue, right? And really the gist of what we're talking about here today is be prepared, right? Be prepared, take the NCLEX exam so that you are in a position to move forward with a petition filing to take advantage of the time when visas may be processed even more quickly, right? So, certainly empathize with concerns around processing times. But Dr. Pica, I think this is one topic also where candidates can overthink things, right? Overcomplicate things. Read, 17 different posts on social media, but with people saying different things, right?
Yes, yes.
It's another, just as it's important to focus in preparing for the NCLEX exam, it's important to focus on what the next step is, the next step, the next step. And until you take the first step, you're not going anywhere.
And Ron, let's not forget the required number of years of practice. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, right? So let's not forget the fact that before you can be practicing in the US, you need to have that experience, right? Of
Yeah.
course, right?
So
And
Dr. Pica, let's just go to
retrogression
the next
will give
slide.
you more time, right?
Yeah. Let's just go to the next slide. Sorry to interrupt you. Please say that again because it was very important.
Okay, so a lot of my students, some of those who are attending our class, who are preparing for their NCLEX, a lot of them are new graduates. And whenever they hear the retrogression and all, what we tell them is that, well, you have to actually take the opportunity while there's retrogression to find an area of specialty where you can hone your ability, because that would help you a lot in being placed in the US, right? So what are the specializations and requirements that they should consider on so that they
Yeah.
can be easily placed or is in demand in the US?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a great point. So I'll say it again. We've said it many times already today, but it's so important. We're going to say it again, right? Number one, take and pass the NCLEX exam, right? Once you pass the NCLEX exam, let's just use the data from 2024. You're one of 35,000 nurses from around the world that has taken and passed the NCLEX exam. So in theory, US employers have the opportunity to choose from these 35,000 applicants. Okay, if you haven't passed the NCLEX exam, you're in the hundreds of thousands of candidates that are interested in coming to the US without NCLEX. Take and pass NCLEX. I think we've said it loud and clear multiple times, right? That is the engine that makes the car go, right? So enough said about that. So then how do you put yourself in the best possible position, given that employers have many other applicants to interview and to select from? It is absolutely best practice that you would have 2 years of current bedside experience in an inpatient setting. It's really interesting. In the US, different employers seem to have different priorities in terms of their needs by clinical department. Some employers are very focused on hiring large numbers of international nurses in their medical surgical departments. One, these tend to be the largest departments in most hospitals. Secondly, many employers see the med-surg setting as a great environment for an international nurse to learn, their new work environment, a new system, policies and procedures, etc. But at the same time, some employers are very focused on a variety of different specialties. So when I look at the number or the proportion of nurses that are hired in different areas over the course of the year, I think the most common ones are medical surgical, OR, emergency room or emergency department, and various types of ICU units. That's not to say that employers aren't hiring in other clinical areas. In fact, we do placements in all clinical areas. Dialysis, for example, significant placements in dialysis, significant placements in cardiac-related clinical units, right? Whether it's cardiac ICU or cardiac surgery, many different types. So these are the most common departments that we see employers hiring for. I think the main point I would make here after NCLEX is to see that you have 2 years of current bedside experience, whether it's in med-surg, OR, ED, or ICU, or somewhere else, right? The main thing is to have that experience. Why is this experience so important? I think I'll take a moment and just speak to that. In the United States today, we have the largest number of new graduates that have ever existed, and that's a result of a variety of programs and efforts to promote nursing as a career choice. Employers in the US have shortages, but they have no difficulty hiring new graduates. There's an abundant supply of new graduates. What employers desperately are seeking is those nurses that have 3, 4, 5 years of experience. 2 years of experience at the time of interview means that you're going to have 3, 4, or 5 years of experience by the time you get to the US. And this is what the US employer is desperately looking for, because while hiring new graduates certainly helps fill the ranks, right? It comes with a burden as well in terms of those nurses needing extensive support to get oriented, to get acclimated to the practice setting. So experience, super important. I would go so far as to say, Dr. Pica, and this is going to be a little bit controversial, but from my experience, and we've been doing this a long time, as you know, and we work with many employers, I'm going to go so far as to say that if you are presented with an opportunity in the US that says no experience required, I would become very nervous. I would be very, very suspicious that opportunity is even legitimate. It may sound appealing, right? It may sound attractive, particularly if you don't have experience. But I can honestly say to our guests that I personally am not aware of a single US employer that would have the least bona fide employer that would have the least bit of interest in a nurse with zero experience. And we're working with hundreds, as you know, hundreds of hospitals, long-term care facilities, and others. So, I'm passionate about this because I'm also passionate about protecting the well-being of the international nurse. And I'll just say again, if you're presented with an opportunity that says no experience required, I would proceed with the most extreme caution possible if I proceeded at all.
Well, I agree with you on that, Ron, because the most important thing for a nurse, before you can be a safe nurse, for example, is to have an experience. Because a new graduate, let's face it, you have probable difficulty in making decisions. You are not yet, experienced when it comes to critical cases, and there are instances when you need to call the doctor and you don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So, and a new nurse will get easily anxious and agitated when faced with, changes in the client situation. So I
Yeah.
agree with you, Ron. And I know that there are no credible employers in the US that would accept a no experience
Yeah.
nurse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very good. We have one more slide before we kind of begin to wrap up and transition to our Q&A period. We've touched a little bit, Dr. Pica, on new graduates and particular advice to them, and we've talked about this a bit. But would you just take a moment and just kind of recap these points simply because they are so important?
Well, one of the things that a lot of people would ask is that should I work first or take the NCLEX or take the NCLEX and then work first? Well, there are two ways to look at that. First, if you are a new graduate, then a lot of the information, particularly if you graduated from a very good school, and there are a lot of good schools here in the Philippines, and most of all, what's good about here is that all the the education is done in English, right? So if you are a new graduate and you came from a very good school, all the knowledge is still fresh, right? And if you enroll right away with a very credible review program like ours, we will teach you on strategies on how to make decision, use your critical thinking. Then, after passing the NCLEX, you can now gain an experience. Because one thing that sometimes a lot of nurses find it hard is to do is that when they graduate, they apply for work, then they want to apply for the NCLEX. Sometimes, because of the nursing shortage, they are not allowed to go on leave. But did you know, Ron, that we usually require the nurse to go on leave? Why? Because if you are working and reviewing at the same time, it what happens? You're tired, right? But
Yeah.
there are a very few people who can manage both. Like one of our pastors who's here, very active here, Jamar. He was working while he was reviewing. He was hired by World Health staff, and but not everybody can do that. A lot of our students, they're dead tired. After they come home, they cannot review anymore. So ideally, you can take the NCLEX first while your knowledge is fresh, like what you see on the board, gain the experience afterward, and apply, all right, even if you are newly licensed, right? So, and a lot of hospitals are hiring right now here in the Philippines.
Great.
So that is a very good strategy. Would you agree, Ron?
100%. Very good advice. There is one little bit of breaking news, Dr. Pica, that I'd like to hear your opinion on. The National Council State Board of Nursing, if we can, yeah, the National Council State Board of Nursing has recently announced that they're planning on offering the NCLEX exam on a remote basis starting next year. Interested to hear, your thoughts on that and how you think this could roll out.
Well, from what I've heard, Ron, a lot of people are excited about this, but this is not that simple, okay? Because, of course, the NCLEX is a licensure exam. And even when you go to the exam center, there are very strict measures, right?
Yep.
So taking the NCLEX on your own in your house is not that simple. There will be apps that you need to install, there will be AI, there will be monitoring, there should be your phone and your laptop. There are so many things to do because they need to make sure that you're not cheating, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
if you are not a techie person and you are clueless about how that will go, maybe it would be better to still go to the testing center, because
Right.
again, it's not that simple. NCLEX will not just allow you to take the exam, all right, without them seeing you and without your computer being monitored by AI. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of things to do. Well, might as well just go to the testing center, right?
Yeah, if possible.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's
it'll
not that.
be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds and if in fact this actually carries forward in 2026 or not.
Yes, we'll see.
All right. If we can just go to the next slide, I'd like to just share just a bit more information or another idea before we go to our question and answer. And one of the questions or one of the responses to the question of how long is this going to take and so on and so forth. Um, Many candidates for many years now have, while they're waiting on their US applications, have taken the step of going to work in other countries for a period of 2 years or perhaps even 3 years. And this remains a very viable option for candidates to help gain clinical skills, clinical experience, to perhaps improve their situation economically. And today, opportunities for nurses remain very strong across the GCC. And in the past year, our team here at Worldwide Health Staff Solutions has started to work with a growing number of Middle East or GCC employers, where we're now placing a significant number of candidates in many countries throughout the GCC. So just want to put that on the radar of our guests and our candidates to know that the strategy may not be a direct line from A to B. It may be from A to C to B. And I know that at Rachell Allen, they also help prepare candidates for licensure and test taking in other countries. So I don't want to dwell on this point. We can do a whole separate webinar presentation on this at some point, but just to raise the awareness that this is a possibility.
Okay, but Ron, while we're still here, maybe a lot of our viewers are maybe interested in this. So, one of the things that I can share is that if you are an NCLEX passer,
Yep.
some countries like Dubai, right,
Yep.
Abu Dhabi are going to accept your NCLEX, right,
Yep.
in
Accept
place
you.
of the
Yeah.
of their exam there.
Yeah.
And Ron, my question is because one of my students, not one but several of them, would like to go to a GCC,
Yeah.
right? And can you tell us in short what are the requirements because they may be listening, right?
Yeah.
So they may be listening. So what are the requirements that they can prepare? Meaning, do they need the experience to go there, or what
Yeah.
else? Can you share?
Yeah, again, it varies a little bit from employer to employer, but there's some sort of foundational things, right? Licensure is absolutely required. So then the question is, what are the licensure requirements and how do I achieve them? As Dr. Pica just said, if you have passed the NCLEX exam, there are many jurisdictions in which you will be exempted, right, from having to take the local licensure exam. If you haven't taken the NCLEX exam, there are different licensure exams that are required in different jurisdictions, and the team at Rachell Allen can help you prepare for those as well. I would say, generally speaking, those exams may not be quite as onerous as NCLEX, right? Which is, in the short term is a good thing, but as we've talked about at great length today, NCLEX is ultimately going to be required. And I don't think it's going to get any easier or get any shorter or get any cheaper. So there's nothing to gain by waiting, right? So there's that. Then there's the usual things like medical exams, and then in terms of experience, it really varies by employers. Again, 2 years is a good benchmark. Although in the Middle East, we have some employers that will consider 1 year of experience.
Oh.
Again, we would be extremely reluctant to engage with any employer that says they'll hire new graduates. The implications of someone being educated in one country, having zero experience, and then going to work in another country in a different health system, in a different culture, I think is not a recipe for success. So it's very much driven by employers. We are also focused, as we are in the US, on working with some of the largest, most credible, well-established health systems that have very strong programs to support the international nurse, both in terms of onboarding clinically, right, and that have well-established support programs for those nurses on an ongoing basis. But I wanted to just raise this as a possibility. And Dr. Pica, we would be happy to collaborate with you in supporting any students that you may have that want to go work for a big health system somewhere in the Middle East.
Yes, there are a lot because
Yeah.
that's if they have an experience here and they want to continue to, gain more experience. And Ron, is it true that if a nurse came from the GCC or Saudi Arabia, are they, I heard from those who are already there in the US that the employers are happy
Yes.
because of the exposure, right?
The international experience is highly valued, highly valued. So again, for our listeners, just remember last year, 35,000 international NCLEX passers, right? The employer's hiring 10 or 50 or 100, right? So they're going to look for the strongest candidates that they can find out of that pool. So how do they determine, who rises to the top, right? NCLEX not negotiable. You're not even getting looked at unless you have that, right? Then they look at your experience, what type of experience, right? And the types of settings that you've worked in. So these are all very important considerations. All right, great. We have just about 7 or 8 minutes remaining in our allotted time today. It's been just excellent, Dr. Pica, covering all of these topics with you. Allie's been monitoring the questions that have been coming in. So Allie, let's see how many we can get through here in the next few minutes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the first question is, I work in OR. Is that termed as bedside?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yes.
so-
It's a bedside of another type.
Yep.
It's a
But that's
specialty.
Yeah,
yeah,
I have another.
but it's certainly hands-on inpatient experience.
And I have another similar question. If I have 4 years hospital experience and now currently working as an LPN is in a dementia home, are they qualified?
Yeah, the answer to that question is it depends. It depends on what type of opportunity they would be looking for in the US. It depends how long ago that 4 years of experience was, right? Like, did it end last year or did it end in 2005, right? That sort of thing is important. So in this type of case, I would say we'd have to consider, this case on a case-by-case basis.
And then we do have a question about the H-1B visa proclamation, and if
Oh.
nurses are going to be exempted from the fee.
Yeah. Dr. Pickett, you heard about this presidential proclamation a few days ago that the H-1B visa fee was now going to be $100,000. So, H-1B is a topic that many nurses are interested in. Again, we've done separate webinars on this. You can find recordings on our YouTube channel. The answer, though, to the question, Allie, is we don't know. That guidance hasn't been provided. Yesterday, there was some discussion coming out of the White House that physicians may be exempted. But the simple answer is, as of today, as of right now, we simply don't know whether nurses will be exempted from this new $100,000 fee per visa.
And I also posted our blog post that's listed on our website if you want to learn more. And the next question is, can I start my application with Worldwide without any experience?
We'll certainly accept your application and we'll keep it on file, but we're not presenting your application to any employer for consideration.
And back to the question about their 4 years of hospital experience and being an LPN, they said that it ended in 2023 and now they're in Finland.
Yeah. Again, that's a unique case. We'd have to consider that case on its own. I would say for someone who's currently not working in an acute care setting and not working as a registered nurse, currently, it's unlikely that you would be hired back into an acute care setting in the US. You would probably be looking for opportunities in the long-term care sector or perhaps in a community setting such as home care.
Difference there's a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it says, I'm an NCLEX passer and I just have less than 1 year of hospital experience and has ongoing hospital work. Can I start my application with Worldwide?
Yeah. Again, the answer is yes, you can start, right? We welcome everybody's application. You said you have less than a year. Okay, does that mean you have 1 month or do you have 11 months, right? And what type of opportunity are you looking for, right? So we'll certainly welcome your application. We'll give you feedback on what we think the opportunities may be for you in the future. So yes, please send in your application. At the end of the day, right, we don't impose these types of requirements just to make ourselves feel good, right, or make ourselves feel important. We are simply responding to a couple of things. We're responding to what employers are looking for,
Mhm.
right? And we're drawing on our 26 years of experience of knowing what it takes for an international nurse to be successful in their transition to living and working in the US. We want you to be successful, right? Getting here, of course, is important. But if you get here and you're terminated from your employment within 3 months, or even worse, there's a critical incident and you lose your license, right? It's a horrible, horrible outcome. We want you to succeed. And the advice that we're sharing is the only motivation, Dr. Pica, I'm sure you will agree, the only motivation for the advice that we share is to ensure that you will be successful.
Yes. Ron, I have a question that I got from several of our students, or there are people that I met in Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Mm,
They're working for several years in a skilled nursing facility. I think that's not hospital.
yeah.
Are they qualified to be called nursing experience?
Yes, the answer is yes. But again, you know, it, all nursing experience isn't equal, right? So if
Yeah.
someone has been working outside of an acute care setting, right,
Mm,
we'd have to first understand what is the practice setting that they were in, how many patients are they responsible, what's the level of care, the acuity,
mm,
what is the scope of their practice in that setting, right? And if somebody's been working in long-term care for 5 years, right, it's not a great idea to submit their application for a position in the cardiac ICU unit, right?
that
It
makes
doesn't work,
sense.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where someone is not working in an acute care setting, has experience, but is working as a registered nurse, those cases have to be looked at case by case with a full understanding of exactly what the scope of their current experience is.
So how about OPD, outpatient department?
Yeah. So again, if somebody has only OPD experience, okay, hypothetically, they have only OPD experience, it would be very difficult for them to obtain a registered nursing position in the US
Mm,
because one, there's very seldom an opening in OPD departments in the US because domestic nurses flock to those positions because they're seen to be very attractive. So there's really no demonstrated significant need in OPD settings in the US, right? And then the work that a nurse does in an OPD setting doesn't translate very well to an acute care setting in terms of the number of patients you have to manage at one time, the critical thinking under pressure, right, under time pressure, etc. So while OPD experience is better than no experience at all, my advice would be see if you can supplement your OPD experience even on a part-time basis. Pick up a shift a week, pick up a couple shifts a month in an inpatient acute care setting to put yourself in the best possible position for being able to secure a position in the US.
mm, mm.
And I'm going to have to cut us off. We're at time.
Okay.
Any closing thoughts from either of you?
So Ron?
I'll just simply say thank you, Dr. Pica. It's been a while and it's great that we were able to do this together today. I would invite our guests to take careful note here of the Rachell Allen contact information. Please feel free to reach out to them directly. They're supporting students all over the world, doing a great job. And yeah, that would be my main closing thought. And then simply, as I always close, is, please stay tuned to the worldwide social platforms for information on further upcoming webinars. We are committed to bringing you useful, meaningful, accurate information on a consistent basis. So please continue to monitor one of our social channels so you can be up to date on upcoming presentations. Dr. Pica, closing thoughts from you.
So thank you so much once again, Ron, for inviting us to take part in this free webinar. And it's always a pleasure and an honor to present with you and to enlighten the nurses out there on what they should do to achieve their American dream. So to all of you who are watching right now, one of the most credible companies that we've worked with is, of course, Worldwide Health Staff. And we always are honored when our nurses are hired by Worldwide Health Staff, of course, with Ron as the CEO. So if you have that American dream, don't give up. All right. Retrogression, like Ron said, is just a delay, but that doesn't mean you will not reach your destination. So congratulations to all of you who attended this webinar. If you want to reach out to us, either to Worldwide Health Staff or to Rachell Allen, you can go to our website and the Worldwide Health Staff website. Thank you so much, our Worldwide
Thank
Health
you.
Staff team and the Rachell Allen team for
Yeah.
this wonderful webinar.
All right. And thank you to all of our guests for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again soon.